So, what's up, guys? Today, I am here for a Miami Heat interview. Now, this is a man right here, a real one, a day one, the Miami Heat Zone. I'm here with Martel, my guy. Go ahead, introduce yourself to the viewers, and go ahead and say what's up.
Well, guys, before we begin, make sure that you guys do what you're supposed to do on this platform. Make sure that you guys like, share, comment, subscribe. Make sure that you show him all the support he's putting out. Great content, great NBA content as well. Make sure that you guys support him 110% before you come to my channel. Now, my name is Martel from the Miami Heat Zone podcast. We're pushing to 5,000 subscribers. We talk everything Miami Heat hoops on. We've had some of the biggest Miami Heat content creators on my channel. And once again, thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, brother, of course. So, of course, the first question I got to ask you, what does a successful Miami Heat season look like for you guys? Just within reality of the situations.
So within reality, like I know a lot of people are saying is that we're running it back for like the fifth or sixth time, but to be honest, I really do think it's always going to be, championship or bust, especially when you have 4 20 point per game scorers on your roster: Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero. I know we really haven't seen it. I mean, we kind of got Terry Rozier close to the end of the season, and then everybody was hurt. Including Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, Terry Rozier. Tyler Hero, he missed 40 games. But I still think that we can be competitive with the roster that we have, and you can never really count out the Miami Heat. Jaime Jaquez Jr., he was phenomenal last year, and he's only going to be better going forward. So I really do think if we can really have just one healthy season, maybe we can make some noise.
So that's an interesting question too. Has your hopes not been dashed, but like as the East has continued to get grossingly top heavy, right? Because now the Sixers got Paul George. The Knicks basically went all in on recreating Villanova, right? They went ahead and got Mikal Bridges, brought back OG. Has that concerned you at all of like, because before, right, it was sort of like, okay, can we beat the Bucks or the Celtics? And we kind of be chilling, right? Because the Sixers, for better or for worse, might get hurt and you could beat up on them, get out of there. And then the Knicks weren't really in the equation at that point. Does that worry you a little bit now that there's way more competition going on here?
The only ones who really still scare me is the Boston Celtics, only because,
Mm,
man, their starting lineup and their overall roster is phenomenal. Pretty much anyone on that roster can give you 20 points per game, even if, Jason Tatum and
mm,
Jaylen Brown aren't even playing well. Guys like Derek White, Porzingis, they can still carry enough for them to win. Now, in terms of everybody else, that's where we have to remember who we're talking about here. I still
mm.
don't trust Joel Embiid. He's not really in shape in terms of to be able to maintain an 82 game season. In my humble opinion, I wouldn't have had him play in the Olympics. If you're not trying to be available for your current team, how can you now go and play in the Olympics when you're never healthy? He's falling down, he's out of shape, he's
Right.
overweight. Now Paul George, same thing. What has Paul George done with Kawhi and the loaded Clippers, who they've had Russell Westbrook, James Harden? They've had a
Right.
phenomenal roster. And Paul George has really never been available. And when he's been available, they're calling him Pandemic P.
That's true.
Then you move on to the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis, I think he's phenomenal. He's carrying that team, but that's more of an older roster than the Miami Heat in terms
That
of
is true.
Dame. Dame got another year older. Okay, they got rid of their best defender in Drew Holiday. Middleton, he hasn't really been anything since they won the chip. I mean, he's been inconsistent. He's had his good moments, but
For sure.
they're going to need him to step up, especially defensively. Now that Drew Holiday's gone, I mean, Dame's obviously not the best defender. Brooke Lopez and Bobby Portis, they're going to do their thing. I just don't think it's enough, when you're really going to compete against these other teams. The New
No,
York
that's fair.
Knicks, I think they're solid. They have a well-rounded group. They have a lot of different wings. Josh Hart, now they have Mikal Bridges. They have OG. So there's a lot of defensive, wings that they can throw out. That's definitely going to cause you some problems. But outside of those, I don't believe in Cleveland. I don't believe in Orlando. I
That's
think they're
fair.
good. They're good young teams. I just don't think they're going to be able to, beat off the Boston Celtics. So outside of the Boston Celtics, I think it's fair game.
That's okay. That's understandable. I agree with you, by the way. To me, after those four teams, the cutoff, I'm with you. Like, I don't really, and some of those teams are super young. They're just not ready yet. They're just not there. So I'm with you there 1,000%. Um, so now this is an interesting thing. So obviously, you guys cover the Heat every day and all that. So has Spo talked about moving Bam to the four with Kel'el Ware finally coming onto the team? Is that a discussion? And do you want that? Are you one of those guys that's like, finally, coach, let him be the four?
Well, to be honest, I'm even surprised that we're even having that conversation because for a long time, people were pushing Bam at the five, Bam at the five. And one thing I do think that Bam has been a great five in terms of being 6'9", guarding 1 through 5, setting screens, guarding the perimeter, guarding the paint, guarding the other team's best player, no matter if it's a small forward or a big, guarding Jokic, guarding Embiid, guarding AD and Giannis. I think he's been phenomenal. Obviously, if you want to maximize someone like Bam Adebayo in terms of his three-point shooting, his versatility, being able to carry up the ball up the floor, being able to be a good passer, a good playmaker, you're going to need to take some of the pressure off of Bam Adebayo in terms of being that five. Is Khalil Ware ready? I don't know. It all comes down to how much size he can put on between now and I would honestly say the first game of the regular season. How much of the defensive sets can he learn? Because obviously, if you're on an Eric Spoelstra team and you can't play defense, you're not going to play. However, I think his athleticism, his size, his talent, his shot blocking ability, it's all there. It just comes down to, can he just adjust to being put in the pick and roll? Can he adjust to the defensive sets? Can he adjust to the quickness and the pace of the NBA?
I hope so, man, because I'm reaching that point, man, because I appreciate Bam a lot, but I'm like, man, and I think that's the big thing that's hurt him a lot too, unfairly. I feel like in like depoy conversations where he's a center, right? But rim protection, I mean, this Bo doesn't necessarily have him be at like, let's sit at the rim. It's have Bam come out and meet people and sort of try and play it that way. But I really hope that if he does get to the four, maybe then voters will finally give him that recognition in that award. That's my big hope too. I mean, obviously, I don't know how long that's going to last because now Wemby's around and Wemby's just going to be disgusting for, that it's disgusting.
But you don't think he should have won DPOY any of these years, especially when, think about it. Not only are they taking Rudy Gobert out of the playoffs, like there's some pivotal moments. They've been doing that since the Utah days to where moments throughout the playoffs, they just did it in the Olympics. They're taking him out of the lineup and cutting his minutes because of the lack of defense or because of the switching or because of the pick and roll. So to me, defense is more than just blocking shots. It's guarding your yard. It's actually team defense because think about it. Without Bam and Miami, he don't have any defense whatsoever. And also, too, we have to remember this. We had an out-of-shape and overweight Kyle Lowry. We had Tyler Hero, who's missing 40 games. We're having Jimmy Butler, who's in and out of the lineup. And we're having a 6'5" power forward in Caleb Martin or Haywood Highsmith. We don't really have a good backup five in terms of we were dealing with Dedmon, Cody Zeller, and all these other guys. And Bam is anchoring a top 5 or a top 10 defense throughout these past few years. What more could you really want? He's averaging 20 and 10. He's an Olympian.
I mean, I agree. I'm with you. I mean, I honestly, and now it was like midway or the beginning of last year, I had him as my depoy. And then I think what messed him up, at least last year, was he did get hurt and then he missed that stretch. And then at that point, you guys were all just trying to, at least stay together. Forget like playing, like you were trying to get a lineup out there because that was getting crazy. Because I remember too, like Tyler just came back and then Jimmy got hurt, or Jimmy would come back and then Bam's hurt, and then it's like, oh, all right, well, I guess this season's there. And this is a not a weird question, but a more outside the box kind of thing. So Pat Riley, I think, is on Twitter at least the most bipolar reaction guy in terms of the way people view him. Because, and I'm curious what you think, and I guess your podcast, when you guys think of him. So, every offseason, there's sort of that, like, why didn't Pat Riley do anything? There's the memes of like, okay, he's sleeping, he's not doing nothing. But then those same Heat fans, interestingly enough, will then go, right? Because then you'll go, okay, so why didn't you get Harden, back in, 21? Or, KD when he was supposedly going to be available, or, and then was like, well, I'm happy we didn't trade for Harden. Actually, I'm happy we didn't trade for Beal. I'm happy we didn't trade for this. Do you think Pat Riley gets a lot more, I guess just a lot more crap thrown at him that he really deserves when you look at it in terms of not doing anything?
Some of it he deserves because, like I said, why are we, for 2 seasons in a row, why do we have a 6'5" power forward? I think, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of moves that the Miami Heat made to where some of it just didn't work out. Like, could you imagine if Victor Oladipo was healthy? Can you imagine what he would have brought to the Miami Heat? I mean, we saw the flashes, even though they were very minimal. But look at the flashes when he's playing in the playoffs, like against the Boston Celtics, Jimmy Butler was able to miss, I think, the closing game in the first round versus the Atlanta Hawks because we have a guy like Victor Oladipo. So I just think that there's a lot of things that they did mess up on, like some of the bad contracts. Duncan Robinson, why did we pay him $90 million when we made him? He was a D3 guy, went to Michigan, undrafted. Why? I'm not saying you don't pay him, but why do you give him $90 million? Because think about it. If you would have gave him 30, he would have been jumping up and down happy for it because we built him through the system. He wasn't going to get paid from anybody else. And then like I said, the Victor thing didn't work out. Tyler Hero, trust me, if you would have told me that Tyler Hero would miss 40 games at 24 years old, who could win? You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that, yes, did they make mistakes? Yes. I think that they didn't put the best quality talent around Jimmy and Bam as they should have. But then at the same time, even when they tried, I mean, think about it. We went to 2 NBA finals. We went to 3 Eastern Conference finals.
Right.
That's success.
Absolutely.
Whether we agree with it or not, you know what I mean? And the outcome, I think we probably could have won in 2020 if, once again, we didn't lose Dragic and Bam, and Jimmy Butler still took them to 6 games. Then in 2022, we're one Jimmy Butler 3 away from going to another NBA Finals. And then even on this last finals run that we made, Jimmy Butler rolled his ankle. Tyler Hero broke his hand. Bam Adebayo, shoulder injury. Kyle Lowry, what did he really do? He was hurt for a bunch of the, stretches throughout the regular season. So did they try? Yes. But think about Kyle Lowry, $90 million on that point guard. It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Some of that is on Jimmy Butler because that's Jimmy Butler's boy. Jimmy Butler is very critical about Tyler, Bam, and Duncan, all these guys. He never really got on Kyle Lowry, scoring 0 points, shooting 3 times throughout 42 minutes. So could have they done a better job? Yes. Did injuries also hold them back? Yes. And some of the major moves that they made, it just didn't fall their way.
Yeah, I agree. It's just an interesting conversation because this team, it's interesting because you guys in some ways, just success-wise, it reminds me of the Pistons in the 2000s when they were going on those runs, multiple Eastern Conference finals. I think they'd gone to 2 or 3 finals too. Obviously, unfortunately, I guess for you guys who weren't able to cap it off with a championship, but it reminds me very, very much of that. And if I remember correctly, is it this year or next? This year is Jimmy's last year, technically, right? Before. Yeah. So I guess for you, right? Let's say you guys either first, second round exit, right? And you could say you lost to Boston in 6, second round, or you lost to Philly or something. Would you then say, okay, let's run this back again? Or would you be at a point where you're comfortable saying, we had a great run here with this set of guys, but we kind of got to let this go before we sink even more money into something where we're then just middling around, hoping that something works out versus accepting, I guess, your fate of your window is closed. It's time to move on.
So the future is Bam Adebayo no matter what. He's our Olympian. He's our all-star. He's going to be our franchise piece. To be honest, I'm going to look at it even a little bit before the playoffs. If we're not a top 5 seed, I think you trade Jimmy Butler only because you cannot afford for Jimmy Butler to walk out the door for nothing. Right. And it's kind of hard to do sign and trades, especially when, guys like Jimmy Butler and Paul George and all these guys, they're commanding $200 million. So it's very hard now to grab other players from wherever you're going to trade him to make the salary work for a sign and trade. So to be honest, if we're not a top 5 team, if we're not playing well, if we have a complete injury-ridden season, I am trading Jimmy Butler before the trade deadline because I think with the Miami, he have a great young core. Are we going to win, next year or the next 2 years? No. But I still think with Jimmy, you got Tyler, Jaime, Jovic, Khalil Ware, Kashad Johnson, Khalil Larson. You still have a good young core to where, let's say that you trade Jimmy Butler to Golden State, you can get a Kuminga or you can get some other young pieces along with some draft capital because if Mikal Bridges went for 5 first-round picks, you're telling me Jimmy can't go for 3? A proven playoff player, you know what I mean? A proven playoff player. So to be honest, I'm kind of looking at it a little bit earlier because sometimes you got to make that move before it crumbles. I don't want to lose Jimmy Butler for nothing. And I think that's one of the huge problems with the Miami Heat. They let Caleb Martin walk out the door. We made him. They made Max Strus walk out the door. We made him. Gabe Vincent walk out the door. We made him. And they're not getting compensation in return.
No, yeah, I can definitely see that. I think that's the only issue, my biggest issue with the guys in organizations sometimes. The whole ride it out, let's be patient thing. I think obviously sometimes, right, it pays its dues, like it works, and other times, right, like you talked about, you definitely the only guy that's since left you guys and has even looked like a semblance of what he was before is Max Strus. If I remember, with Cleveland, he's the only dude that's looked like a semblance of what he was in Miami, like playing competent basketball, getting good minutes, rotation, and like I'm with you, man. It's so hard to see because again, like it's one of those things because being a Bulls fan, like I love Jimmy, so like Jimmy's my guy. Yeah, I know, bro. I know. That's a whole different
franchise, man. That franchise has been shooting itself in the foot. They let Caruso just walk out the door.
We don't talk about that, bro. We don't talk about that, bro. That trade hurt my bro. I thought I got trolled on Twitter. Someone showed me that. My buddy on Discord, he's like, "How do you feel about the trade?" I was like, "What trade?" I see it. So oh my dude, I can't even. That was the worst.
But you know what's crazy though? There's even some NBA players. A lot of teams don't really want to win like that, and then also to management. If you do not have a good organization, like I know that we throw around like the Miami have one of the best organizations. Have they made mistakes? Yes, but your organization and how they manage asset management, that's another thing that also harmed the Miami Heat. They got rid of a lot of first round picks to get off contracts. You know, they made a lot of bad deals and they had to attach picks to get out of those deals. So asset management is one of the biggest things because asset management, it doesn't just help you to get assets, but it helps you in the future when you're trying to leverage contracts and leverage picks and get players because the Miami Heat were always in the running for guys like Dame and all these, but we don't have the first round pick capital where teams, they're just throwing around 4 and 5 first round picks.
Right.
Like it's 1 or 2 picks. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I agree that's the other big issue. And that's why I push back sometimes where people are like, oh, you know, Pat Riley doesn't do anything. It's like, well, unfortunately, at some point, it's like, well, what literally can he do? Like, he can't give them the 4 first round picks that Milwaukee gave. He can't give them however many pick swaps that others like. They don't have it. I will say, is there a player on the Heat right now that you're like, guys, you got to keep an eye out for this guy? He could be something like real nice, real special. Is there someone there for you?
Terry Rozier and Jaime Jaquez Jr. Those are the two that, I mean, of course, Tyler Hero for me as well. Those 3 guys. And I only say that because Tyler Hero has to find his place. So what I mean by that is we know what Jimmy and Bam can do. But Tyler Hero, you know, even though he shot himself in the foot when he said this, how he's in the same conversation as Luka, Trey, and Ja, obviously he's not at that level. But in terms of being a 20-point per game scorer, former 6-man, how can he find himself in the flow of this offense to where it makes sense? Terry Rozier, he's quick. He has the handle. He can create rim pressure. You know, we saw what he was doing with the Charlotte Hornets, even though it did not lead to winning. But you saw his overall scoring, his overall versatility, what he can bring on the offensive end. And then Jaime Jaquez Jr., arguably, maybe if it wasn't for Wemby, how does he not win the Rookie of the Year? I think Jaime, I mean, like the fact that he had multiple 30-point games. He had 30 points against the Philadelphia 76ers on Christmas. You know, he played about 72 games, straight warrior. So Tyler Hero, he's going to have to find his place this season. Can he be healthy? Can he not miss 40 games? Then you also have Terry Rozier. We gave a first-round pick for him, and then all of a sudden now, you know, his neck, and then, you know, he's not showing up in the playoffs. And then same thing with Jaime Jaquez Jr. What can he do in year 2?
Okay. So how do you feel about guys like Nikola Jovic? Because there's a Miami Heat fan buddy of mine, and he loves Nikola Jovic. And me and all my friends don't quite get it. We don't quite. Okay, I'm glad it's not just.
I'm not the biggest fan. Is he going to be consistent enough? Because when you look at his career, he's going into his 3rd season, I believe. But, you know, he's only played like 70 games. So, yes, he's young. He is young, but we haven't been able to really see what he can do. I think the talent is there, but I'm on board with you. If he does not show me what he can do this year, I think we might have to move off on him. He's only, I think, maybe 20, 21 years old, and sometimes you have to wait for players to develop because what the Miami Heat have been able to do with the added size and just being able to play over in Serbia, over the Olympics, that's experience. and he really hasn't had that many NBA games under his belt. You know, Spo kind of had him in the corner for a little bit longer than I would have liked, but I'm gonna need him to be a better rebounder at 6'11", and I'm gonna need him to be more of a knockdown shooter at that 3-point line. Now, are the Miami Heat playing to his strengths? Yes and no. Because when he was in Europe, he had the ball in his hands. He was like a point guard. Right now, they want him to play the 4 because he's probably the second tallest outside of Khalil Ware on this team next to Bam.
Yep.
So are they using him right? Yes and no. And are we really going into his strengths in terms of putting the ball in his hands, being a playmaker, doing those things? We're not really doing that. But still no excuse. 6'11", grab those rebounds, play defense, and knock down those shots. And I kind of want to see him just be more involved on the offensive end. This Miami Heat team scoring 85 points in 2024. It can't happen. Scoring 90 points in 2024. He has to be able to give us a little bit more on the offensive end.
No, absolutely. So I'm curious, are you a believer that Rozier and Hero can play at the same time? I know some people are like, oh, well, they didn't really get to play because, again, Hero would come in and then when they play, one of them gets hurt and then it's back to the other guy kind of just being the main guard. And then, are you a believer in it, or are you one of those like, hey, like one of you got to come off the bench? And if so, who are you leaning towards to be like, hey, man, we love you at the 6 man? Oh.
With what I've seen, if it was me, Tyler Hero's coming off that bench because that's where we've seen him with the most success. I don't know why he takes that as such a knock. I know a lot of people will say, well, once you become a 6-man type player, that's all that you can ever be. Not necessarily, because everybody across the NBA is getting paid crazy money. KCP, he's like one of the ultimate, role players. He got a lot of money to go to play with the Orlando Magic. Bruce Brown, he got a lot of money to go play with the Pacers. So there's a lot of different people that's getting money. It just comes down to, can you ball and can you fit a system? If it's me, my starting lineup is Terry, Duncan, Jimmy, Jovic, Bam. Khalil Ware will fit him in maybe midway through the season to see how he looks next to Bam.
Right.
And then Tyler Hero's coming off that bench. Now, they're not going to do that. But that's where it comes down to Spo. To me, Spo's the best coach in the NBA. He needs to figure out a way, and if I have one knock for Spo, it's on the offensive end. Everything else he does pretty well. The offensive end is where he struggles in terms of how come we have Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, and Terry, and we can't make it work?
Yeah, that's always been your big issue, especially it's more so the facilitating, because I feel like the one issue is with you guys from what I see when I watch it is it's interesting because you have 3 capable passer playmaker kind of guys. Like, I think Hero is a decent passer playmaker. I think he kind of gets a little disrespected in that way from people. I don't think he's anything crazy, but I don't think he's like, dribbling the air out of the ball and not looking to move. He could definitely facilitate. You have Jimmy, who's a good passer, good playmaker. And then obviously you have Bam. The issue is I feel like Spo sort of just goes, okay, so one of you 3 do something and everybody else is kind of hope you could get somewhere where it works out. Versus like, let's try and keep each other involved in a different kind of way. It always feels like you kind of run that like ISO ball. It kind of reminds me of the earlier Celtics when they had just Tatum and Brown. It would just become one of them hold the ball and hopefully it works out for the other guy. And that's where I think your issue runs into place. And I think that's part of the reason you went for Kyle Lowry is that you were hoping like, hey, Kyle can do it. Like, this is our creator for others. I just sort of hope, I don't know if Spo's going to be able to, right? Because you've talked about it. Offense has always sort of been his weakest point as a coach. Do you think Terry Rozier is a good enough facilitator for the team? I think that's the other issue.
I think he can be, because remember, he's coming from a losing organization, and like when you're playing like on a losing team for multiple seasons, we saw what he looked like in Boston. I think he was great in Boston. He had a lot of good moments in Boston, especially when you have a guy where he loves D Wade. He's always wanted to play for the Miami Heat. Before he came in the NBA, he was a Miami Heat fan. That means that when he comes in, he's going to be bought in, whether that's coming off the bench, whether it's starting. I think that's not the question. It's just that how can we get Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, and Terry's points to transition into the box score? How is this team going to be successful? Obviously, that comes with sacrifice. There's no way that you're going to have a team with Terry, Tyler, Duncan, Jimmy, Bam, Jaime, and, no one's going to at least take less shots, or maybe you might play some more defense depending on matchups. Somebody's going to have to sacrifice. Somebody's going to have to put their ego to the side. Everyone's already paid. Okay, Tyler's making 120 million. Everyone's getting paid. So let's put the ego aside. I know that Tyler's going to say, well, why is it always me? He's going to say, why is it always? Guess what? Jimmy and Bam has been doing everything that they possibly can. They've been, pretty much healthy as is terms of taking us to the finals, and they've been available. The next man is going to be Tyler Hero if he's supposed to go to the bench, but I don't see that happen. I think it's going to be Terry, Tyler, Jimmy, Bam, and Jovic.
That's what you think they're going to run out there game one?
Yeah, because they have a small sample size. They really haven't been able to see it, so I really do think it's going to be those guys who, the Miami Heat bring out for game one.
I agree. I don't think, as much as I might like him to, I don't think Ware's going to start. I do agree with you, though. I think midseason, Spo's going to be like, let's spice this up and let's see what we can do with Bam at the 4. Because I'm assuming they're going to play together anyways, because, like, if there's anyone you could have help learn a defense or whatever by your side, and, it's definitely, you're going to see a lot of Bam and Ware, combo minutes. I'm actually happy you got him. At first I was a little shocked. I was like, oh my God, like that's like perfect for you guys, like an actual big, and you got it for free. Technically, you didn't get to, pay for it. Oh my goodness. You see, I just had the question, man. It was on the tip of my tongue, and now I just lost it, bro. I was literally about to ask you something, and I hate when this happens.
You're good, man. So it's like I said, hopefully, we can have somewhat of a successful season. Don't sleep on the Miami Heat. That's all I have to say. Like, don't sleep on the Miami Heat. Once again, I know a lot of teams, they've made improvements. They've changed things up. But look at the players that they've gotten on their roster. Look at the price tag that could affect them in the future. Look at the quality of work in terms of an overall roster. I don't trust Doc Rivers.
That's fair. You see, like, that's the big.
There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different things that go into it. You know what I mean? I don't trust a lot of health going around with some of these players. But we'll see. Like with the Miami Heat.
Yeah, that's the one thing with the Heat. I just gotta. Oh, okay. I do remember. Okay. Is this for you? And I'm curious because again, you have a better pulse too of what Heat fandom is like. Are y'all fed up with the Jimmy regular season crap in terms of like not trying to take it serious and all that? Because I'm curious, because at what point do you get frustrated of like, now I get part of it's injuries for sure. But at what point do you go, I'm tired of us being a 7 play-in and we have to make the journey so strenuous and so unbelievably hard? Now, obviously, again, I mean, you guys were the 1 seed in 22, right? Was it 22?
22, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, obviously, I'm not saying you got to be the 1 seed again, but does it frustrate you guys at some point too? Because Jimmy has been an advocate of like, oh, in the regular season, I kind of, I'm chilling in playoffs. Are y'all just fed up with that? Are y'all this season like Jimmy, just lock the hell in and like, please, like we don't want to be in the play no more?
But that's like the biggest misconception. I just feel like I don't need Jimmy Butler to play 82. No one's saying that Jimmy Butler at age 35 needs to play, 82 games.
No, I agree with that.
Can you give me a competitive 65? In terms of, there's a lot of games where we're losing to the Orlando Magic and the Spurs and the Charlotte Hornets. We're losing games that if you have Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, and Terry, you should not be losing.
I agree.
You should not be losing those games. Games to the Detroit Pistons or to the Grizzlies when their whole roster was hurt. You have to take advantage of the regular season in terms of right now, coming up this season, we have a lot of easy games. I think the hardest matchup technically on paper is the New York Knicks. But we're going to start off the season playing the Hornets and the Wizards and the Pistons. We have to take full advantage of that. We cannot afford to start off the season 8-8. I don't need Jimmy Butler to play 82, but he is in his contract season. He cannot afford to have 2 back-to-back bad seasons. I just don't like when Jimmy Butler says like he's out sick, but then you look on social media, he's at like a tennis tournament.
With like, that made me piss me off more so with the Insta stories, bro. 20 posts in one story. You are not doing that much, bro. Yes, I agree. So, I agree with that.
So not only him, but we have to take the regular season more seriously.
I agree. As a whole, I hope so. And that's where I always thought was a little weird with Jimmy, because he's always about holding everything accountable and all that. But that's the one thing he goes like, I don't know. Shout out to my guy, man. That's my guy right there. But I don't know, man. But we are reaching the end here. So do you have anything you want to say to the viewers before we get heading out?
Make sure that you guys, like I said before, like, share, comment, subscribe to Michael's content. Once again, he knows ball, he knows what he's talking about. Make sure that you guys subscribe to his channel. He's always putting out great content. Thank you for having me on the show again. We're pushing to 5K subscribers at the Miami Heat Zone. If you want to hear anything Miami Heat, come click on this channel.
And again, man, I just want to let the viewers know and everything that he's a real one, man. This my guy Martell here, he's a real one. Back when I was, and I'm still not that big of a channel, but like, hey, back when I was even a little baby channel, he was like, hey, let's do something Miami Heat, and I told him I got him, and so he's a real one, and I appreciate him, and I appreciate you all for watching.